Imagine this. You are the most admired woman in the entire world. You just buried your husband, the President of the United States, on live television. Millions of people watched you walk behind that coffin, in black, holding your children's hands, not shedding a single public tear. The whole world called you brave, called you graceful, called you a symbol. And then, 5 years later, you do something so shocking, so unexpected, that America turns its back on you almost overnight. You marry a man the press calls a pirate, a short, stocky, older Greek shipping tycoon, a man who is not handsome, not charming in the traditional sense, and, here's the part people couldn't get over, a man who was already in love with someone else for years. Why? Why would the most iconic woman in America do this? Why would she trade the Kennedy name, the most powerful political brand in history, for a man the world didn't even like? Today, we are going to find out. And I promise you, the real answer is not what you think. Who was Jackie? To understand what Jackie did, you first have to understand who Jackie actually was, not the icon, not the symbol, the real woman. Jacqueline Lee Bouvier was born in 1929 in Southampton, New York. Her father, known as Black Jack Bouvier, was charming, handsome, and completely unreliable. He drank too much, he gambled, and he cheated on Jackie's mother constantly. Jackie adored him anyway. Her parents divorced when she was 11, which, in 1940s America, was still something that carried a kind of quiet shame. Jackie learned very early that love was complicated, that the people you love the most can also hurt you the most. She was brilliant. She spoke French fluently, studied at Vassar, spent a year in Paris, which she later said was the happiest year of her life, and won Vogue magazine's prestigious Prix de Paris writing competition. She could have been a writer, a journalist, an editor in Paris. Instead, she came home, and she met a young senator named John F. Kennedy. Now here's what most people don't know about Jack and Jackie's marriage. It was not a fairy tale. Jack Kennedy was charming, yes. Powerful, yes. He was also, and historians have documented this extensively, one of the most unfaithful husbands in American political history. He had affairs with actresses, with socialites, with women on the White House staff. There were names everyone knew, Marilyn Monroe being the most famous. Jackie knew about most of it. So ask yourself, what kind of emotional armor do you have to build? To smile at state dinners and wave to crowds, knowing what you know. Jackie built that armor. Beautifully. Perfectly. And that armor came at a price. November 22nd, 1963. Dallas, Texas. Jackie is sitting next to her husband in an open-top car. The Texas sun is warm. People are cheering. She's wearing a pink Chanel suit, a color she chose specifically because Jack liked it. And then, the shots. What happened in the next few minutes is almost impossible to process as a human being. Jackie, still in that pink suit, still covered in her husband's blood, refused to change clothes before boarding Air Force One. She said, "Let them see what they've done." She stood next to Lyndon Johnson as he was sworn in as president. In that famous photograph, you've probably seen it, she stares straight ahead. Her eyes are somewhere far away. She was 34 years old, a widow with 2 small children, in the most public grief imaginable. The days that followed became legend. The black veil, the lighting of the eternal flame, John Jr.'s tiny salute to his father's coffin, a moment that broke the heart of an entire nation. Jackie choreographed almost all of it. She wanted a funeral worthy of Abraham Lincoln. She made the decisions. She held everything together. But here's the thing about being the person who holds everything together. Eventually, you fall apart in private. Jackie moved out of the White House. She moved to New York. She tried to build a new life. But everywhere she went, people stared. Photographers followed her. Strangers approached her children. She later said she felt like an animal in a zoo. America loved her, but America's love felt like a cage. Enter Aristotle Onassis. Now, let's talk about Aristotle Onassis. Because if Jackie Kennedy was the symbol of American grace and tragedy, Aristotle Onassis was something else entirely. He was born in 1906 in Smyrna, what is now Turkey, into a wealthy Greek merchant family. And then, when he was 16 years old, everything collapsed. The Greco-Turkish War. His family's city was burned. His step-grandmother was executed. His father was imprisoned. Aristotle escaped with almost nothing. He made his way to Buenos Aires, Argentina, with $60 in his pocket. What he did next is one of the most remarkable business stories of the 20th century. He started by selling cigarettes. Then he got into the tobacco import business. Then, at age 25, he bought his first ships. Old, cheap cargo ships that nobody wanted. And he built an empire. By the time he met Jackie Kennedy, Aristotle Onassis was one of the richest men on earth. He owned a private island in Greece, Scorpios. He owned the largest privately owned yacht in the world, the Christina O, named after his daughter. He employed hundreds of people. He moved through the world like a force of nature. He was also completely self-made. No inheritance. No connections. No safety net. Just will. Jackie and Aristotle had actually met years before the assassination at parties in the 1950s. Through their shared connection with Winston Churchill, who Onassis occasionally hosted on his yacht. They were friendly. Not close. Just aware of each other. But then, after Dallas, something shifted. In 1963, Onassis had also suffered a devastating loss. His son, Alexander, had been killed in a plane crash. He was a father who had lost his child. Jackie was a wife who had lost her husband. Grief has a way of making two people see each other differently. They began spending time together. Jackie took her children on his yacht. He made her laugh, and people who knew Jackie said that in those years, genuine laughter from her was rare. He didn't treat her like a symbol. He treated her like a person. The decision. So here's the question everyone always asks. Did Jackie love Onassis? Honestly? Probably not in the way we romanticize love. But I want to push back on the idea that this makes her story less interesting. Because I think what Jackie felt for Aristotle, Onassis was something that, at that point in her life, she needed more than romantic love. She needed safety. She needed a man who could build a wall between her and the world, who had enough money and power that paparazzi and politics could not reach her children. She had watched her husband be shot beside her. Then, 3 months before the wedding, she watched Bobby Kennedy, her brother-in-law, the man who had been protecting her, get assassinated too. Jackie Kennedy was terrified. For herself. For her children. She once told a friend, "I want to live on a Greek island, away from America and its violence." Aristotle Onassis offered her exactly that. A private island. A yacht. A life surrounded by water and Greek sun and walls that the world couldn't easily climb over. They married on October 20th, 1968, on the island of Scorpios. Jackie wore a short ivory dress. Aristotle wore a dark suit. There were no thousands of cameras this time. No state officials. No world watching. Just them, a small group of family and friends. The sound of the Aegean Sea. And a decision that the rest of the world immediately called a betrayal. The headline in one German newspaper the next day read simply, "Jackie, how could you?" America reacts. The reaction was not kind. The Catholic Church in Boston, where the Kennedys were essentially royalty, said she was now living in sin. The Vatican newspaper called it a spiritual degradation. One American journalist wrote, "Jackie Kennedy has died. The woman who killed her was Mrs. Aristotle Onassis." Think about that for a second. This was a woman who had survived political assassination, public grief, constant surveillance, and the loss of multiple children, including 2 babies who didn't survive. And the world's response to her remarrying was outrage. The Kennedy family was furious. Teddy Kennedy flew to Greece to try to talk her out of it, and came back having failed. Her approval ratings in America, yes, they actually polled this, collapsed overnight. But Jackie had made her choice. And she did not apologize. Life on Scorpios. So what was life actually like, as Mrs. Onassis? The honest answer is complicated. Aristotle Onassis was generous, yes. The yacht, the island, the jewels, Jackie received all of it. He spent millions making her comfortable. But he was also controlling, possessive, and he never fully let go of the woman he had loved for years before. Jackie, Maria Callas, the legendary opera singer. Maria Callas and Onassis had been in a passionate, turbulent relationship for almost a decade before he married Jackie. Many people, including Callas herself, believed that Onassis married Jackie partly as a power move, a trophy, the ultimate status symbol, and that had to hurt. Still, Jackie found something on that island she hadn't felt since Paris. Privacy, peace, the ability to walk on a beach and not be followed. She swam. She read. She watched her children, Caroline and John Jr., run on Greek beaches without a security detail suffocating them. For a few years, it worked. So what was life actually like as Mrs. Onassis? The honest answer is complicated. Aristotle Onassis was generous, yes. The yacht, the island, the jewels, Jackie received all of it. He spent millions making her comfortable. But he was also controlling, possessive, and he never fully let go of the woman he had loved for years before. Jackie, Maria Callas, the legendary opera singer. Maria Callas and Onassis had been in a passionate, turbulent relationship for almost a decade before he married Jackie. Many people, including Callas herself, believed that Onassis married Jackie partly as a power move, a trophy, the ultimate status symbol, and that had to hurt. Still, Jackie found something on that island she hadn't felt since Paris. Privacy, peace, the ability to walk on a beach and not be followed. She swam. She read. She watched her children, Caroline and John Jr., run on Greek beaches without a security detail suffocating them. For a few years, it worked. The final chapter in January 1973. Alexander Onassis, Aristotle's son, was in a plane crash. He survived for 33 days. And then he died. Aristotle never truly recovered. He grew ill. He became bitter. The marriage grew cold. There were reports of arguments, of separate lives, of Onassis talking openly again about Maria Callas. Aristotle Onassis died on March 15, 1975. In Paris. He was 69 years old. Jackie was a widow. Again. She was 45 years old. After a legal battle with the Onassis family over the inheritance, Jackie eventually settled for around $26 million. She returned to New York. And here is where the story gets quietly beautiful. Jackie Kennedy Onassis, finally, built the life she actually wanted. She became a book editor at Doubleday Publishing. She worked. She rode her bicycle through Central Park. She went to the ballet. She had close friends. She laughed, genuinely, regularly. She was not a symbol anymore. She was just a woman who loved books and art and her children and New York City. She was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in January 1994. She died on May 19, 1994. She was 64 years old. She was buried next to John F. Kennedy at Arlington National Cemetery. In the end, she went back. The real lesson why did Jackie marry Onassis? I think the real answer is this. Jackie Kennedy was a woman who spent most of her life performing strength for other people. For America. For the Kennedy family. For history. Marrying Onassis was the first purely selfish decision she ever made. Not selfish in a cruel way. Selfish in the way that any human being who has been through that much suffering is allowed to be. She chose safety over image. She chose peace over public approval. She chose herself. And yes, America judged her for it. The Catholic Church judged her. The newspapers judged her. But here's the thing about people who judge you for finally choosing yourself. They were never actually protecting you. They were protecting their idea of you. Jackie knew the difference. And in the end, the woman who walked out of that marriage, back to New York, back to books and bicycles and her own quiet life. That woman seemed happier than the icon the world had fallen in love with. Maybe the bravest thing Jackie Kennedy ever did wasn't walking behind that coffin. Maybe it was choosing, eventually, to live. If this story made you think, or feel, something, I'd love to know what. Drop a comment below. Tell me which part hit you the hardest. And if you want more stories like this, real stories, about real people, With all the complexity and pain and beauty that actual life has, subscribe, because I have so many more of these waiting for you. I'll see you in the next one.